You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning, it's February the 27th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. And good morning to you, Rev Cindy. How's things?
Good morning, Al. Things are good. How are you?
Oh, I'm not too bad. But I'll tell you, Monday during the news, it was like spring was here. It was 6 degrees. It was sunny as could be. And as I look out my window today, I can tell you it's a whole different picture. But I'll tell you, it's very pretty. It's really
Yes.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, you were saying flakes?
We have heavy snow here today, and I'll tell you, it's sticking to the trees. So the trees they're all covered in snow now, like all the branches and stuff. And good day, Sherry Ann. Thanks for the like. Appreciate that. But yeah, it looks nice, but it just means there's more shoveling coming.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah. It's right on that it looks pretty. It really sucks with the shoveling.
Yeah, exactly. And knowing that it's more than likely headed your way.
I think it's going to show up here as rain, though. I've been keeping an eye on our, it's that time of year. I always keep an eye, on the forecast and hope that we get like 2 degrees instead of -2. And being on the Atlantic Ocean, of course,
Yeah.
Your snow can come here and be rain like that, and vice versa.
Right.
So in our upcoming, we've got a few days of like really, really heavy rain in the forecast.
Well, you got some more moisture on the way. We know that for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Anything new and exciting before we get into the news?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I'm just studying with a new course.
All right. Well, we're going to be covering stuff today from Canada, from the U.S., as well as we're going to Germany, I believe, in some of our news. So let's get at it. First story of the day is up.
Coming to us from Business of Cannabis, nearly half of Canadian cannabis contains only 80% of the advertised THC levels.
Oh, I know there's variants, but Canada's pioneering cannabis data gathering program has published the results of a new study showing a shocking discrepancy between advertised and actual THC in its consumer market. Last week, Health Canada published the results of a survey of 100 samples of both legal and illegal sourced cannabis flower, which found that nearly half of the legal samples had less than 80% of their labeled THC content.
Yeah. Canadian cannabis businesses have long cited THC inflation as not only a troubling and unsustainable trend, but as a cause of falling revenues in their businesses. In 2023, Canadian cannabis producer Organigram cited THC inflation as a meaningful contributing factor to its fall in revenues and profits, impacting flower sales and margins. It also might have something to do with the fact that they used to put bad pesticides in there too.
Yeah. Now, according to the company, the industry practice of dishonestly labeling cannabis products to exaggerate THC levels was becoming more widespread, seeing customers favor supposedly higher potency products. Its CEO, Bina Goldenberg, says that we see that there are some licensed producers who are averaging sales of flower in the 21% to 22% range and now are showing 28 to 32%. This is not something that even the most advanced cultivation techniques could make happen. And yeah, that's not right. If that's
Yeah, the latest data from Health Canada has now laid bare the extent of the issue. Only the 50 legal, or of the 50 legal samples examined for THC levels, heavy metals, pesticide residues, mycotoxins, and microbial contaminants, 14 products, 28% of them, had 70 to 80% of the labeled THC amount. Furthermore, 10% had less than 70% of the stated THC content, and only 26 products contained at least 80% of the declared THC amount.
less than 70% than the advertised value on there.
Yeah.
That's
That's like I mean, only because in here in Nova Scotia we have our cannabis is in the back closet of the liquor store. You know, that's like selling a rum that says it's 100 proof and it's only like 68%.
yeah. It's just that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
These
that would
these discrepancies suggest that many legal cannabis products may be overestimating their potency, potentially leading to consumer dissatisfaction and improper dosing. Overestimating their potency, isn't it not supposed to be tested to ensure accuracy? Just saying. In contrast, illegal cannabis products showed extreme variability. The THC levels ranging from under 100 milligrams per gram to over 250 milligrams per gram.
And just so you all know, that's 10% THC to 25. The study also found higher levels of heavy metals in illegal cannabis, particularly arsenic, lead, and mercury, while some metals, including copper, molybdenum, and nickel, exceeded tolerance limits in both legal and illegal products. Contamination was far more prevalent in illicit samples. Pesticide contamination was another stark difference between the two markets. While only 2 legal cannabis products contained trace pesticide residues, a staggering 94% of illegal samples tested positive for multiple pesticides, with an average of 3.4 pesticides per sample. Might that have something to do, though, with sitting in police lockup where they, you know, like they'll be spraying for, you know, rodents and bugs and, you know, cleaning supplies?
I don't know. Yeah, that's 3.4 pesticides.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. I never use any pesticides. So. Among the most frequently pesticides in illicit cannabis was myclophenol. 72% of the samples had that. And there's another one there that I'm not even going to try to pronounce. It was banned in regulated cannabis production due to potential health risks. Wherever it came from, that's not a good sign.
No. In the article that we read before, they were talking about how they got their illegal samples from
correct
cannabis that the police have, you know, kept in their things. So, you know, and I just thought about it when I was reading it there. It's like it might have something to do with the fact that it was sitting around police lockup for a while.
And, you know, do things intermix, whatever, while they're in, who knows? I don't know how it's stored, right? But that was a full article we did on Monday on the Health Canada thing, whereas this one was more targeted towards that stuff. So, all righty, on to the next story. I'll get her all lined up here. And we got to close that little thing, get that out of the way. And here we go.
Coming to us from Psychiatric Times, how cannabis interacts with psychedelics and the memory.
Yeah, I was curious about this. Cannabis has long been a topic of interest and controversy in psychiatry. Now, Mark Vanier, he's an MD, has explored the clinical implications of cannabis medicine. He has worked with Clinical Society of Cannabis Clinicians and the International Alliance of Medicinal Cannabinoids to provide insight into how cannabis compares with other psychoactive substances. Now, before discussing the psychiatric impact of cannabis, it is essential to define cannabis comprehensively. prescription cannabinoids differ from whole plant cannabis extracts like Rick Simpson oil. The pharmacological effects vary widely depending on the form, isolate of THC and CBD, high potency extracts, or different plant parts such as the inflorescences, leaves, stems, bark, and roots. Administration routes further complicate the picture with options including oral, topical, and even intravenous. Huh?
Hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, well, yeah. We're both kind of stuck on that for a second. Huh? Okay, on to the
Wow.
next paragraph. Let's see if I can get past that even intravenous statement. What? And an underappreciated, okay, like that's just
Wrong.
an underappreciated area of concern is the interaction between cannabis and psychiatric medications. For instance, cannabis can exacerbate serotonin syndrome when combined with selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Similarly, with some of the phytocannabinoids exhibit antipsychotic properties, their effects on schizophrenia and bipolar disorder remain ambiguous. Combining cannabis with hallucinogens, a growing trend among patients experimenting with microdosing, can be particularly hazardous, sometimes resulting in severe toxic reactions. Polypharmacy involving cannabinoids presents another challenge. Patients often mix THC, CBD, and lesser-known cannabinoids like CBG in high-potency extracts. Although cannabis is frequently contrasted with hallucinogens, it has a distinct neurobiological profile, particularly in terms of withdrawal and neuronal effects. Unlike classic psychedelics, which promote synaptic growth and dendritic branching, as seen with ketamine, cannabis appears to prune neurons. This pruning process may be beneficial in specific psychiatric conditions, much like controlled demolitions allow for rebuilding rather than perpetual renovations.
In conditions involving traumatic memory, such as post-traumatic stress disorder, this pruning effect may offer therapeutic potential. Research from Stanford highlights the role of cell taxonomy in psychiatric disorders, suggesting that targeted removal of dysfunctional neurons could be beneficial. Just as inadequate pruning is linked to autism and dementia, controlled neuronal pruning via cannabis could serve as a novel approach for conditions characterized by maladaptive memory retention. While cannabis has well-documented impact on memory, this effect may be a double-edged sword for patients burdened by severe trauma. Strategic memory modulation could provide relief. As research advances, psychiatry must remain open to both the risks and potential benefits of cannabis in mental health treatment. So there you go.
Interesting.
And intravenous. I did hear that years and years ago. It was like somebody from the government was saying it. It was even before legalization. It was one of those fear mongering things that came out.
Well, I mean, every time you see somebody pick up, like they've done a raid now, and they've picked up this. Oh my God, it's injectable cannabis. And I'm wondering if that's reefer madness, if that's where they got their information.
I wouldn't doubt it. That makes perfect sense. You see a syringe of
because
oil,
a lot of the stuff that was
injecting it
in there was kind of hard to read.
It wasn't it? I just went, whoa. I read it, as I was reading it, I got to that point, and I'm going to say it because it's here, right?
It's not our story. We're just reading the news, even if it is cool sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. All right, on to the next story. Here we go.
Coming to us from the International Cannabis Business Conference, Constitutional Challenge to Cannabis Prohibition in Namibia.
Namibia, there. I didn't mention that place. We find out where that is. Oh, looks good. So, cannabis prohibition policies are typically challenged in one of two ways. The first is via the political process, with some countries having better options for seeking this route than others. The other common way that cannabis advocates challenge cannabis prohibition policies is via the courts. Several countries have witnessed their top courts handing down landmark rulings against cannabis prohibition, such as in Mexico and South Africa. Namibia is the latest country to see a cannabis court challenge.
And just so you know, they are a country in South Africa, right down almost to the tip. Botswana is, it's kind of Madagascar is just off the coast of Botswana, which is the other side of Namibia. Just so you were wondering.
Okay.
Yeah. 3 judges of the Windhoek High Court are set to hear oral arguments in early July on whether an attempt to have the outlawing of cannabis in Namibia declared unconstitutional is ripe to be decided at this stage. And this is coming from the Nambian in its local coverage. The plaintiffs in the case, ganja users of Namibia, GUN as they're called, President Brian Jafata and GUN Secretary General Boro want the High Court to declare the prohibition of the possession and use of cannabis by adults in Namibia unconstitutional, the outlet also reported.
Nice. Currently, cannabis activity is expressively permitted by adults in Uruguay, Canada, Malta, Luxembourg, Germany, and South Africa after lawmakers in those countries adopted national adult use cannabis legalization measures. Additionally, court decisions have been rendered in at least Spain, Italy, and Mexico that afford some level of protection for adult cannabis consumers. Cannabis is also legal at the state level in 24 states in the U.S., and recreational pilot trials are operating in the Netherlands and Switzerland. There you go.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully we have another country that's going to be joining us when it comes to places that have cannabis legalized, and that would be good. Oh, just so you know. G'day, Gordo. How you doing, buddy? How's Scotland doing? All righty. We'll move on.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next story. I'll get this one lined up. And this one's going to be interesting as well. Here we go. So she's up.
Mm-hmm. Coming to us from Medical Press. Can psilocybin, the key ingredient in magic mushrooms, be the key to treating head injuries?
Hey, lots of them going on. Mild repetitive head injuries do more than just cause short-term issues with cognition, behavior, and motor skills. They also lead to an increased risk of dementia, Parkinson's disease, and chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and cost billions of dollars in healthcare. There is no medical treatment for these types of injuries, but new preliminary research out of Northeastern University shows the solution may lie in a surprising place: psilocybin, the psychiatric found in medicines like magic mushrooms, natural plant.
A group of researchers, including Northeastern psychology professor Craig Ferris, tested the healing effects of psilocybin on adult female rats. After these rats suffered mild head injuries, researchers found that being treated with psilocybin helped restore normal brain function. I was absolutely stunned, Ferris said. It actually improves these neuroradicological measures associated with head injury. I love that. I love that the psychology professor was stunned and admitted it.
Good, exactly. The research has not yet been peer-reviewed, but appeared in Biorex as a preprint. It could show promise as a potential course of treatment for mild repetitive head injuries, Ferris says. I wonder about concussions. Yeah. This is the first report to find that serotoninogenic hallucinogen psilocybin can treat brain injuries, given its anti-inflammatory properties and promotion of neuroplasticity and cell growth. Other studies have explored these PSIs as a solution to treat other psychiatric disorders like depression and anxiety. So researchers were curious about whether it could treat head injuries as well. Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Psilocybin helps to reform those neural pathways. And if that
Mhm.
pathway can't be reformed, it'll find another way to make the pathway. It's such a beautiful medicine. The type of head injuries researchers looked at were mild repetitive traumatic brain injuries. These are the type of injuries that young and professional athletes, military members, and elderly people might encounter. They don't cause any damage to the skull other than a small bump, but can lead to inflammation, impaired blood flow, and other damage to the brain, as well as temporary confusion or disorientation. That sounds like a mild concussion.
Sure does.
Yeah, there's no contusion and bleeding in the brain, Ferris said. All that you see is the bump on the head from the edema on the skin, and that's perfectly fine. But if you have 2 or more bumps, then you've got these long protracted problems with neuroinflammation, and it changes in the blood-brain barrier permeability and changes in connectivity.
The rats were impacted once a day for 3 days in a row, so they had a bump on the head. And then they were given a single 3-kilogram dose of PSI via injection after each bump. Researchers then evaluated the rats using MRI to track their brain activity and vascular reactivity. What they found was that the rats treated with PSI had reduced neuroradiological and molecular issues with the brain from the brain injury.
The study mimicked a model from the National Football League to stimulate the type of head injury a person might get when playing sports, Ferris said. The 9-month-old rats were awake when they were concussed, much like humans, and didn't suffer skull damage, contusions, or bleedings. Blood samples were collected and MRIs were done within an hour of the injury on the 3rd day, so researchers could see how the body responds to subtle injuries. We impact them on the head, Ferris said. We don't use anesthesia because people aren't impacted under anesthesia. Everything we do mimics the human experience. We've replicated the problem as true as we could to the actual experience. The results we get with MRIs are the same results reported in the clinic. Not only does the experience replicate, but the results from the experience translate to the human condition as measured in scanners all over Boston.
Researchers also evaluated the animal's cognitive and motor behaviors. These tests included a beam walk and the Rod test, which is often used in Parkinson's disease models to assess equilibrium and motor function. What researchers found was that the PSI reduced the brain edema from the head injury, potentially strengthening the blood-brain barrier and inducing hypercognitivity. I'm not going to get that one out. A marker for neurodegenerative diseases was also reduced, and brain-derived neurotropic factor was increased with PSI treatment.
It really did incredible things. God, I love hearing professionals say stuff like that when they're doing this kind of research. It really did incredible things, Ferris said. What we found was that head injuries, functional connections go down across the brain. You give the psilocybin, and not only does it return to normal, but the brain becomes hyper-connected. Ferris said this research may open up the possibility of using psilocybin to treat other neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease. Absolutely. And strokes. He and his team next want to study whether this method works in treating head injuries long after the injury has occurred. Absolutely.
Ferris finishes off by saying, we know right now that you can treat head injuries on site.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was a great story.
Yeah, lots of good news there. Just so you know, Gordo says it's sunny and not rainy. Windy though. yeah, I understand Scotland's really windy. From golf. My parents watch golf all the time, and there's a big golf tournament that goes on over there, and that was the concerns all the time was the wind. So all righty, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're done that first half of the show, and it's time for us to take a break. All right, when we get back, we'll finish the next 4 stories. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We're live here at paceradio.net, and 420pace.ca. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net. Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. Rerolled Saturdays. Check it out. Nothing but non-stop cannabis and psychedelic programming. Find it at 420pace.ca.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
Pace Radio is the people advocating cannabis education radio network.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection! We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tyndonega.
We have two lines of drinks. One's called our Nature's Nectar. That was our original line that we came out with, and then we also have a line under the Red E brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net. Hey, you're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Education News. Almost ran out of breath on that one. Well, Cindy, we've got 4 more stories to go, and our first one comes to us from Germany. Here we go.
Exciting. Coming to us from StratCan. What does the conservative win mean for legal cannabis in Germany?
Yeah. Now, Germany's conservatives pledged to overturn the 2024 legalization of cannabis if they win the February election, which they didn't. Oh, actually, they did. Sorry, they just won. But what will this mean to the Germans' cannabis? We'll find out. With over 6 years of adult use cannabis legalization in Canada and far more for medical, it's sometimes easy to forget that the end of prohibition is still a hot-button political issue in many existing international markets.
Yeah. A case in point is the recent regime change in Germany, where the right-wing Christian Democrat Union, the CDU, won the German parliamentary elections. While on paper, this might not necessarily mean anything immediately dire for the German market, the shift no doubt raised a few eyebrows in Canada, considering the sheer quantity of cannabis products that are regularly shipped to the European nation. In 2023, Germany imported a record of 31,398 kilograms of medical cannabis products, with approximately 50% of that originating from here in Canada. And the numbers have only increased from there. Further, several Canadian companies have expanded their presence in the German market, including Organigram, Tilray, Aurora, Canora's Group, and various others.
Germany historically comes from a so-called traffic light coalition with, says Finn Hensel. He's CEO and founder of Sanity Group. He says that this means left-wing and liberal parties formed a government together. This government fell apart in September or October last year. There were new elections this January, and what came out is that the Conservative Party won the election. Hensel added that the Conservatives said during the election campaign that they want to repeal the cannabis law. Yes, I said that. As dire as that sounds, he was quick to point out that Germany is required to have a coalition government and will more than likely form one together with the Social Democrats. That was the group leading the old government, and they are one of the main driving forces behind legalization.
It should also be noted that the Conservative Party has not been clear about what it means by repeal. Does it mean the adult use initiatives or the existing and robust medical system? If you read publicly what they were saying, they don't differentiate. They just say cannabis, said Hensel. But we talked a lot with politicians over the last 6 months. We had very good exchanges with the Conservative politicians. And when you talk to them, they say they only want to take back adult use and don't want to touch the medical.
So if the Conservatives want to take back adult use initiatives and the Democrats want the status quo with everything, including adult use, Hensel believes that the compromise would be the medical cannabis laws remaining untouched and the adult use getting some tweaks. Social Democrats will need to make compromises on the adult use part. What I could imagine is home cultivation will not be allowed anymore. I can also imagine that public consumption will not be allowed anymore because it's something the Conservatives really don't like. He added that the possession amounts will likely go down, something significantly lower. Geez, that paragraph sounds so familiar in my mind. But
yeah, to me, it sounds like something we're about to really hear in the upcoming months here in Canada.
Yeah.
Another important player in the German cannabis landscape is Konstantin von der Gorben, who is the co-founder and managing director of Demican. He agrees with Hensel's announcement of the current situation regarding compromises. It's very unlikely we will see a complete 180 on cannabis policy as long as the Social Democrats are part of the new government coalition, said van der Gorben. That said, there might be some concessions that will be made. Home cultivation allows 3 plants. Maybe they reduce that to 2 or just 1. Maybe they take it away completely.
Yeah, exactly. Even one plant. Come on. He also felt that there might be a reduction of possession amounts from 25 grams on the person and 50 grams at home to something lower. And also the repeal of cannabis clubs, of which there are only currently a handful. Van der Groben went on to say that Demican's business is fully on the medical side, so they don't expect any significant issues. In fact, if recreational cannabis becomes less accessible, he feels that there may be more business because medical cannabis is easily accessible in Germany, and people will substitute adult use for the medical side of the market. And I remember our Trudeau talking about that when they first legalized. That was one of their concerns, that people were just going to use the medical end in order to access something that they might use recreationally instead.
Yep. For the time being, our 2025 forecast outlook for Demican is still very optimistic. It is a bit of a downside that the overall sentiment from the new government will be a little more against cannabis, he said. The former coalition of the Social Democrats, the Greens, the Liberals, they were totally pro-cannabis. They would have gone further, but the incoming government will be fine with the status quo. It's safe to assume that when this news came out regarding the regime change in Germany to a more conservative representation, it caught the attention of many cannabis companies in Canada who rely on Germany as a regular customer.
Caught my attention as a patient and as a consumer of cannabis, I'll tell you that. In the first half of 2024, Canadian medical cannabis exports nearly doubled compared to the same period in 2023, reaching 67,475 kilograms. This was largely driven by demand from European countries, particularly Germany. Should we be worried about whether this will affect existing and future supply deals? Deepak Anand, principal of ASDA Consultancy Services, doesn't think so.
Deepak says it doesn't impact any of the LPs. Also, the timelines are really important. This is something that was explained to me. First, the government doesn't get formed until at the earliest May. Then, even assuming they want to make changes to the medical program, they would need to start that process the second they get in. Given everything that is happening in Europe, that's unlikely. Hensel also agrees with that reassuring sentiment. There is a whole list of topics that are very important for the government, including migration, economic changes, and inner security. Yes, they want to take back the cannabis law, but it's agenda point number 15 out of 15 points. It's not high priority.
No, that's always right. Regardless of this, Anand did point out that if your business is cannabis, you are basically in politics. So companies need to keep a close eye on what happens anywhere and everywhere. However, regarding the current election involving the one of Canada's most significant international cannabis consumers, it seems the message of the day for Canadian companies is don't panic.
No.
That was one scary paragraph in there. Yeah, didn't like that one at all. It sounds like something I'd be saying exactly.
Yeah, well, it's fearful that that's something we might be facing here in Canada very soon.
Yeah, it is. So, alrighty, moving on to the next story.
Coming to us from Marijuana Moment, former U.S. Senator calls on Arizona lawmakers to pass ibogaine research bill, pledging to raise $5 million to support psychedelic trials.
Wow, really? A lawmaker pledging to raise money to help on this. A recently retired U.S. Senator is calling on the Arizona legislature to pass a bill to fund clinical trials into ibogaine, while pledging to personally raise $5 million in philanthropic donations to support the psychedelic research if the legislation is ultimately enacted. At an Arizona House Appropriations Committee hearing on Monday, members discussed the legislation with Rep. Justin Wilmeth, which would provide funding for the State Department of Health and Human Services to conduct a certified clinical research study on the use of ibogaine for the treatment of neurological diseases.
The goal of the ask is simple. Make Arizona the hub of a revolutionary treatment to help our veterans, the sponsor said in opening remarks. He then welcomed one of the measure's supporters, former U.S. Senator Kingston, who also championed psychedelics reform while serving in Congress. Sinema said that as a former licensed clinician social worker, she understands the limitations of conventional therapy options for people suffering from conditions such as traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress injuries.
Exactly. Traditional psychotropic medications such as SSRIs and mood stabilizers range between 20 and 40% effective. So clearly, the current arsenal of tools are not working. As a result, an increasing large number of Special Forces veterans have traveled to northern Mexico in recent years to undergo ibogaine treatment in medically controlled settings.
Yes.
While we don't yet understand how ibogaine works inside the human brain, early studies have shown overwhelming promise, Sinema says, listing additional conditions that psychedelic appears to treat, including addiction and major depression.
Absolutely. Now, Arizona is perfectly positioned to do this work as we already have world-class neuroscientists and the neurological tools to conduct these studies, she said. The Arizona bill, as introduced, would have appropriated $10 million for the ibogaine clinical trials, but it was amended in committee to have that amount, while adding language stipulating that the health department can only distribute those dollars if the research institution has a commitment for matching monies of gifts, grants, and donations of at least $5 million outside of what the state offers.
Sedema says she was up to that task. She says that I pledge to raise matching $5 million from private philanthropists here in Arizona. And together, these dollars will launch the Arizona Ibogaine Initiative and start us down the road of sound clinical research that will one day soon result in the FDA approval. The pharma senator says, and she goes on to say, I hope in the near future that we will see ibogaine as an improved treatment for traumatic brain injury, PTSI, treatment-resistant depression, and other neurological disorders such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and addiction, she says, adding that her hope is that eventually this will be available for people throughout the country with all of these disorders.
Thank you, Al. Sinema also said during her time in the Senate, she worked very closely with U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs and the VA officials. She also had the opportunity to speak to the incoming Secretary of Agency, former Representative Doug Collins, about the issue. I've had the opportunity to brief him on the issue, and currently the VA at the federal level is continuing its work on research, she said. They aren't currently studying ibogaine. They're studying other breakthrough treatments. And again, those are incredibly important to provide clinical care to veterans.
Yeah. The former senator was referencing the VA's $1.5 million investment into a study exploring MDMA-assisted therapy for veterans with PTSI and alcohol use disorder, which she separately discussed at an event with then VA Undersecretary of Health Sheriff Ellenthal. But such VA-led studies do not lead us down a path of FDA approval, Sinema says. And so this is a very different path that ensures that one day the FDA approves the medicine and that it's available for people outside of the VA system.
Yeah. And last year, Sinema visited a VA facility that's leading psychedelic research efforts. I just think it's amazing. To see a politician dedicate themselves to raising $5 million to help research for a psychedelic to help, traumatic brain injuries of all kinds. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I know. Now that story continues on. It's only got two more paragraphs. There's only 2 paragraphs left. Now I'll finish it off. It says, back in Arizona, the ibogaine legislation is being introduced about a year after the state's Democratic governor vetoed a bill to legalize psilocybin service centers where people could receive the psychedelic in a medically supervised setting. The measure would have significantly expanded on Arizona's existing research-focused psychedelics law that provides $5 million in annual funding to support studies in psilocybin therapy. $5 million a year that they put towards that. That's good.
Well,
it's money they're putting into it.
Yeah. And the fact that a politician, retired politician, but still a politician is looking to work hard and raise $5 million and in their own time, in their own way, is just I think that's amazing. And I personally have come from a world of ibogaine. And I truly believe in this medicine. I have it has helped with my post-traumatic brain injuries, as well as helping me fight off the last bit of addictions that were roaming around, making me crave.
The only problem with former politicians talking about it is that they're former and they're not present politicians to actually be able to make the change. But I'm sure they have friends in high places where they can get to, right?
I think what she's doing is speaking very loudly. The fact that she is willing to put $5 million on the line. And work
that's a loud voice.
Yeah, it tells me that ibogaine has somehow in her life made a positive influence, and I think it's just
yeah. They didn't touch on that in the story. If it did, it didn't. So, alrighty, on to our next story. Here we go.
Coming to us from the business of cannabis, new studies suggest medical cannabis highly cost-effective treatment for post-traumatic stress injuries.
And as you've noticed, Cindy and I are using the word injury instead of disorder because that's what it is. It is an injury, right?
It is. Yeah.
All right. Medical cannabis is a highly cost-effective treatment for individuals with moderate post-traumatic stress injury, according to a new study. The findings published by researchers at Leafwell suggest that even without comprehensive medical insurance, medical cannabis treatments could help reduce healthcare costs while improving patients' outcomes.
Leafwell researchers examined the cost effectiveness of medical cannabis when used alongside more traditional treatments like antidepressants, comparing various, and they say more traditional, more modern treatments, really, like antidepressants, comparing various cannabis products under 4 insurance reimbursement models. The findings suggest that non-flower cannabis products such as edibles, tablets, and other oral solutions were the most cost-effective regardless of insurance coverage.
According to the study, these formulations met cost-effective thresholds commonly used by U.S. insurers, even at 100% reimbursement plans. However, dried cannabis flower proved less cost-effective due to its higher price point, but was still considered cost-effective when insurance covered at least 50 to 70% of treatment costs, dependent on product pricing.
One of the study's most significant findings was that medical cannabis still led to health improvements, even when patients paid out of pocket, of course. Even at 0% reimbursement, patients experience meaningful benefits at no additional cost to insurers. This study is a crucial step in demonstrating the economic and therapeutic value of medical cannabis in mental health care. And this is coming from Dr. Mitchell Doucette, who is the lead author and senior director of Health Economics and Outcomes Research Division at Leafwell.
Question. It said that even at 0% reimbursement, patients experience meaningful benefits. Yeah, it does, because the reimbursement doesn't make the difference in the amount of the benefit. That way, yeah. As far as health benefit, I'm looking at it as.
Yeah.
And no cost insurance, exactly. Medical patients across Canada, not many of us get reimbursed for our cannabis, right? So
the last time I researched, military veterans, of course, once they apply for it and get approved, they get they get started with 3 grams a day paid for, and outside that, here in Nova Scotia, as far as I know, and I could be wrong, there could have been more pop up. There is one insurance company that gives them. Last I checked, and I heard this has gone up, $300 towards other medical supplies, which they will allow cannabis and cannabis, like pipes and bongs and whatnot to be part of that.
Oh, okay. That's good. Now, is that $300 for the year?
For the year, for 12 months.
Yeah. All right. Good to know that they'll help them with buying their accessories in order for them to take their medicine. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. On to our last story of the day. As always, you like to keep track of what's going on in the federal government south border, and here we go.
Yeah. Coming to us from MJ Biz Daily. Trump research cuts threatened cannabis studies and poses rescheduling questions.
We're always hearing we need more studies, and now they're being threatened. Okay, there we go. The Trump administration's plan to cut federal research funding threatens 565 ongoing experiments involving cannabis. 565 of them. I was shocked. I didn't realize there was that many going on in the U.S. This is according to MJ Biz Daily. That's the review on the review and interviews with scientists and academics. And the company's freeze of new National Institutes of Health grants is also stymieing future research of key components, and raising questions about the fate of the cannabis rescheduling, as well as suggesting profound consequences for the regulated MJ industry.
The NIH announced on February 7th that it would drastically reduce to no more than 15% of the amount of indirect cost, money used to cover administrative and faculty-related bills, financed by federal research grants. Without fully funded indirect costs, I literally cannot do my research, Angela Bryan, who is a professor of psychology and neuroscience at the University of Colorado, who studied high THC cannabis, as well as the use of cannabis for pain, mood, and sleep. This is what she told MJ Biz Daily in a phone interview.
Universities immediately sued to block the NIH cuts, which are now on indefinite hiatus, pending the resolution of those legal challenges. And here you can see the numbers. The universities, Colorado, Washington, Yale, South Carolina, and the list goes on. They say that forces researchers to continue to work despite the real possibility that a halt could happen at almost any time.
It also creates potential for yet another long-term headache for the $32 billion cannabis industry. Without reliable research, the regulated cannabis industry will be hard-pressed to fight allegations of cannabis's drawbacks and lawsuits alleging high-potency products' severe harms.
The industry also might be unable to satisfactorily answer questions from skeptical or hostile lawmakers who want to reverse or halt key reforms, including federal cannabis rescheduling and state-level legalization. Now, according to Dr. Ziva Cooper, who's a professor and director of the University of California's Los Angeles Center for Cannabis and Cannabinoids, says, "We're all very concerned because of the unpredictable nature in which things are heading."
Wow. Federal dollars aren't the only funding source for cannabis projects. Some institutions, such as UCLA, also receive funding from states that set aside revenue from cannabis sales for research.
However, practically speaking, most labs would struggle to function or cease altogether without NIH grants, which have been the source of much larger, generally high-impact studies, Cooper says.
Yes, Brian is currently the principal investigator in 3 cannabis-related studies, including research into the medicine's value in palliative care for cancer patients and its effects on older users. At Brian's lab and at colleagues' institutions across the country, she said, "The level of anxiety is higher than I've ever seen it. I have to tell you, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is a 12.
Oh, that's not good. Brian says, we're all terrified that our work will grind to a halt. We've had almost 30 employees at our lab. All of these people will be out of a job."
In the meantime, the Trump administration has also canceled review of new study proposals, meaning any research in various stages of approval but not yet underway are in limbo indefinitely. Such disruption to cannabis-related research comes despite some campaign trail signals that Trump administration would be cannabis-friendly.
It also runs counter to the September plea from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine for a new research agenda, including lifting restrictions imposed by the Office of the National Drug Control Policy on studying cannabis legalization and its effect on public health. Now, according to the NIH database, 565 ongoing research projects with a total of $320 million in funding mentioned cannabis or marijuana in the project's title or terms.
These include the largest long-term study of brain development and child health in the United States, which is in Florida, a dedicated cannabis research center in Colorado investigating the still unknown effects of THC and CBD, and a focused effort in California examining whether teenage cannabis use impairs adult brain function. And while cannabis represents a tiny portion of the $47 billion the U.S. Government spends on 60,000 distinct biomedical research projects across a range of disciplines every year, the ongoing work also reflects a remarkable turnaround that's now at risk of reversal.
Uh-oh. In 2012, the year voters in Colorado and Washington State approved the first adult use cannabis legalization laws in the nation, researchers published about 1,200 cannabis-related studies, according to the NIH database. We need more studies. We need more studies. Many of these studies, critics note, focused on cannabis harms. Exactly. It's what they always, How often do you ever hear them saying there's research into good stuff when it comes to government?
Yeah. I mean, that's how they found out all the good stuff. We're going to go say that it does this. Oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Dr. Lester Grinspoon, that's one of the things he always said, is that the government hired him to find something bad, but it didn't work out that way.
Didn't work out that way. By 2021, researchers published more than 4,200, I love the number, cannabis-related research projects with scientists such as Brian inspired and empowered to also investigate the medicine's potential benefits. Over the last 4 years, at least under the Biden administration, there were a number of signals that the NIH was very supportive of funding research dedicating to understanding the health outcomes related to cannabis, whether that was therapeutic or adverse effects. This is the UCLA's Cooper saying this.
Yep. He goes on to say that I think the cannabis space is just starting to get some real great momentum through NIH, added Josh Kapler, an associate professor of psychology research, behavioral neuroscience at Western Washington University. Kaplan says the need to understand cannabis safety profile is imperative.
Absolutely. We're trying to understand cannabis at a high level, no pun intended. And I would love to see that momentum continue. I hope that it's not tarnished by what's going on now.
Yeah. There's also reason to fear that the chaos and uncertainty swirling in the research space could affect the cannabis rescheduling process, which remains on hold while the Trump administration decides how to proceed.
In January, hearings before the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration's chief administrative law judge regarding the Biden administration's proposal to downgrade cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substance Acts were put on pause pending an appeal. When or whether the appeal is heard is solely up to the DEA.
The DEA, led by Trump nominee Terrence Cole, a career official in the agency and vocal cannabis critic, if he is confirmed by the Senate. A key justification for the Biden Justice Department's recommendation to rescheduling cannabis was the Department of Health and Human Services August 23 finding that cannabis was a currently accepted medical use.
During his confirmation hearings earlier this month, new Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy declined to endorse those findings. Kennedy also promised Republican U.S. Senator Pete Ricketts of Nebraska, one of the states that officially opposing cannabis rescheduling, that he would follow the science on the harms of cannabis, a claim he later reiterated on Fox News on a Fox News appearance.
Privately, some researchers believe Kennedy's sudden cooling on cannabis, as well as Trump's choice to lead the DEA, portend the status quo, but at the least it raises serious questions about the Trump administration's interest in cannabis reform.
If the door is open to rescheduling pending more research being done, and if research is impacted by these changes, then yeah, that would likely impact further discussion about cannabis rescheduling, Cooper said. We don't know. We are just unsure.
Yeah, exactly. That was something that was raring there in the fall and going along. And then as we've reported here in the past and some of the stories, it got a real bumpy ride in those hearings. And the fact that there was a lot of witnesses that were denied, A lot of the witnesses were slanted toward the prohibitionist end of things, and then the talk of the fact that the DEA and one of the prohibitionists, Smart, Kevin Sabat's group there, were talking behind the scenes. So, like, it's, yeah. So now it's all on pause for now. So we'll see what happens. Just a matter of time. We'll keep you all informed anyways, as we see it in the news, that's for sure. All right, Cindy, that's it.
That's it.
We're done. We're done. We're out of stories, and I see we're at the top of the hour.
Perfect.
That's right. Exactly. Anything before we say goodbye?
Oh, just have a great weekend, folks.
That's right. Exactly. Have a great weekend. And from the Legacy420.com news desk, that's the news for today. We hope you find it educational and informative. Thanks to Legacy420.com, Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, At-Eze.ca, and Limestone City Hydroponics.ca. And to our viewers, thanks for tuning in. And you'll catch the next broadcast Monday at 10 o'clock. I see we got a message. Thanks, Gordo. You have a good day as well. And other than that, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20 is so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420 enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.